Hey everyone, we're back with another video on an Intel Compute Stick, and today we're taking a look at the Cherry Trail version of the Compute Stick. This is the BOX STK1A W32SC. This model has the X5 Z8330, which is the latest revision of the Z8300 series, the only real difference being that the burst clock speed is slightly higher than the 8300. It also comes with the Generation 8 Intel HD graphics with 12 execution units. It has 2 GB of DDR3L at 1600 MHz, and it also has 32 GB of eMMC storage along with Intel's wireless AC and a copy of Windows 10 Home 32-bit. We're just going to do a quick unboxing, just kind of taking a look and see what's inside the box. And as what comes with all Compute Sticks is the HDMI extender, as well as some international and North American plugs for the AC adapter. This AC adapter is a bit different than the Core M that we just unboxed. It just has a micro USB. There's no USB connections at all on the AC adapter. Obviously all Compute Sticks come with literature, which is nice and boring, but the Compute Stick itself is a slightly different from the Core M version we looked at previously. So on one side you have a micro SD card slot for expanding the 32 gigs of storage, and on the other side you have a USB 3.0 port, a USB 2.0 port, and then your micro USB. Other than that, as far as the form factor, it's exactly the same as the M3 version as far as the measurements, and pretty much matches up at perfect, except for obviously the port locations are slightly different. So now that I finally have this Compute Stick available to me, I'll be able to do some comparisons versus the first generation Compute Stick and obviously the second generation Core M3 version as well. Now before I go, I wanted to also make a quick mention, something that I discovered just from briefly doing some benchmarks, and it was kind of eye-opening for me, to be honest. The original Intel Compute Stick using the Z3735F Atom CPU with the Intel HD graphics, just running the Dirt 3 pre-built benchmark. One thing I noticed is that the original Bay Trail processor is not pulling a whole lot of wattage as far as the unit itself. We're looking at around 2.75 watts, maybe a little bit less as the benchmark goes through, and so it's pretty respectable as far as power consumption is concerned. And then I fired up the Cherry Trail Compute Stick and ran the same test, obviously measuring the power consumption as well. I was kind of blown away of how much more power the Cherry Trail version actually uses. CPU power is really not much at all. It's to be expected, but the GPU usage, power usage is incredibly high. We're seeing the total package, instead of using 2.7 around that range on Bay Trail. On Cherry Trail we're looking at closer to 9, so 9 watts. So I ran some benchmarks to compare the two, and I was pretty surprised to see. Obviously, the performance difference is pretty drastic between the generations. In this test, we're looking at about 58% faster at the 720p low settings test, but we averaged the power usage, and we're looking at about 220% more power that the entire package is using, which is basically the CPU and the GPU and the memory controller. So that's a lot more power consumption, more than I was expecting. I wanted to make sure this wasn't a software error or something along those lines. I am using Hardware Info. It's a pretty well respected piece of software. It utilizes the sensors on the SoC itself. So I went ahead and hooked up my kilowatt meter, plugged in the Compute Stick AC adapter to it, and wanted to get a reading for myself to kind of see it in my own eyes and not using software. And lo and behold, it's correct. Cherry Trail using Hardware Info does not allow me to see the entire system usage, just the package usage. So the entire system usage in this case is anywhere between 10 and 11 watts, so it's realistic. So I'm just pretty surprised on the consumption. We are getting more performance on the graphics side. On the CPU side, I think we're going to see very little performance increases. You can read this over on non-tech or other places as well. The CPU performance is really negligible for the most part. The biggest biggest upgrade to Cherry Trail is in the graphics department. So stay tuned. We're going to do some more testing, find out what's going on, and we're going to be comparing this Cherry Trail compute stick again to the Bay Trail and the Core M3. And then I also have Braswell in my NUC too, so we'll be comparing all these, running some benchmarks, doing some gaming and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned, and thanks for checking out the video. Bye.